Hey guys, it's Ryan at GPI. Today we are going to do some tuning on this little 5th gen car. I haven't read the file out yet. I figured I would just take it from the top. We'll read the file out. I've got a template file for this little basic bolt-on setup. I'm going to drop into the tune file. We're going to flash it and hit the road. We'll do some data logging, and I'll kind of explain some things along the way, some of the things we change, some of the things I look at and feel for while I'm driving and tuning on a car, and some of the things that I'll be looking at, you know, obviously for problems on the log. So let's get started. I'm going to shut the car off. I've had the AC running so I don't smother in here, and I'm going to read this file out. It's going to take us about probably 5 minutes or so, 3, 4, 5 minutes to read this file out. It was previously tuned with an SCT little handheld programmer. I already took it and uploaded the stock file back in it. Sometimes if it's been programmed with a handheld scanner, it can mess with the calibration file, can cause some issues reading, you know, the bully dogs, the SCT. Sometimes it messes with the checksum in the file, which can cause some issues reading and flashing if you try to use their file as a starting point. So it's always best on something like that to try to return to stock, which is exactly what I've done. So this thing is reading. We'll get back to it in a moment. Okay guys, so what I'm going to do now, I've got the original calibration read out. I'm going to go into the HP Tuners VCM Editor and open up my template applicator, which is basically, you can build template files when you're doing large volumes of tuning with the same repetitive setups. I build template files to basically have a good starting point, and then we'll flash that in, we'll apply those changes, flash it in the car, and we'll drive and log from there. It's the same principle and process with remote tuning as well. It may only take 3 reflashes, it may take, you know, 20, who knows. Every car is going to be different, and the car certainly sets the pace. So let's go ahead and find a 5th gen bolt-on file here, and I'll get that dropped in. And just with the touch of a button, we've got over 100 parameters changed, just like that. We'll save this file as a new file. I always try to save the original files in case there's ever an issue where I need to revert back to the original file, or if I need to ever put it back stock. I like to try to keep the original file that I pulled out of the car for everyone. All right, let's get this thing fired up. I've already got my channel list pulled up. I'm going to connect to the vehicle and get logging. We have everything logging that I want to see on this. Live data streaming across, and this is basically recording, so I don't have to look at this real time. I'm recording this right now. I'm going to drive and I'm going to data log this. What I personally do, if I feel like I feel something that's a little off while I'm driving, and I want to mark that spot and know where that was, sometimes I'll blip the throttle real hard, real sharp, real fast, so when I'm scrolling across the bottom and I see the RPM trace, I can see these abnormal throttle blips because I don't typically drive like that, and I know that's an area that I need to go look at because I felt something, whether it be with the transmission shifting, converter lockup, or just a general, you know, drivability concern. Anyways, I've got my data logging. I'm up to operating temperature. This is a very basic car. This shouldn't take too long. It's on pump gas, so it should be very cut and dry. We get strapped in here and we're going to go around the block and get this thing dialed in. Generally speaking, something like a bolt-on 5th gen, something like this, I've done a ton of these cars over the years. I can usually dial these in pretty quick as long as there's no outside issues, you know, mechanical issues or anything that's preventing me from being able to get good accurate data. Sweet. You know what's weird? The reason I have my template file set up like that, believe it or not, with the truck guys and the stock engine basic bolt-on guys, you'd be surprised. There's a number of guys that still want their AFM on because they feel like it helps the economy of the vehicle and everything. I personally couldn't disagree more, but if you want to rock AFM on, then by all means go for it. So I'll get that knocked off for this next update here. I'm going to drive and try to feel some other things before I stop up here. Maybe make a little spirited pull to get some wide open throttle data. Probably going to tighten up the shifts. The first thing I feel is I want the shifts to feel a little bit more positive. Very particular when I'm tuning something in person about the way I want it to feel. I try to tune it like it's mine, like I would want it. So that can take time for me to dial in stuff that's kind of more of a personal preference for me. First little rip. Captured a little data that should tell us something general about fueling and the base timing that we're running right now on our base file. So already I can kind of just give it a quick glance and see that I probably need to pull a little bit of fuel out of it at wide open throttle. I want to change the transmission firmness, and I need to knock the AFM out because it's already driving me crazy and the customer does not have a specific request to keep it active. I have my little path through town here where I go and do this stuff. So I'm gonna get going through here. I'm gonna pull over up here to the left, flashing some changes. Part throttle fueling already looks pretty good. There's nothing really dramatic that needs to be done at part throttle on these cars. I personally like the factory shift schedule pretty good. I just like a more positive transmission feel, you know, more of a bump on the shift. I like that a little bit more aggressive than stock. And disable the upshift torque management because you don't need it with good transmission tuning. Knock this fuel out, get that dialed in, and make sure we're running about the right amount of ignition advance for the setup on pump gas. Nothing real crazy aggressive. And knock this AFM off. We should be on the downhill slide. If all works well, it's probably only going to take 1 or 2 revisions to really have this thing spot on. But you got to understand, it took me doing these for like 5 years all day every day to get to the point where I had everything as precise as I do now from a starting point. You know, my starting point is usually 75-80% there, and then it's just small changes from there. So depending on the air induction system, etc. So let's go through here. Let's stop this log and look. Wide open throttle. Looks pretty good. I'm going to pull a little bit of fuel out. Timing curve looks pretty good. The shift RPM looks good. This is going to be very basic changes. Super simple. Super simple. Okay, let's hit this torque model. Let's bump this torque reporting up. That's going to help our shift firmness without having to, because it's only reporting 339 foot-pounds of torque at wide open throttle. I'm going to bump up that torque reporting where it will report higher torque. When it reports higher torque, then in turn it's going to command more aggressive shift with the transmission pressure profile. So it's very important things to look at on all the late model stuff is the torque reporting. The transmissions look at reported torque to know what they need to do in terms of pressure. There's that. I'm gonna pull a little bit of fuel out. About 3% from 3,400 RPMs and up. 3.5%. That looks good. Super simple already. Let's burn it in. Quick changes. This is going to be very quick. Should only take maybe like 45 seconds or a minute to get started. We disabled upshift torque management. Took 3.5% out of the wide open throttle fuel. The timing curve looked very good. Looks safe. No spark knock. AFM disabled. And I bumped up the torque reporting on the torque model tables to get us a little firmer shift. This should be a night and day difference with how it runs and drives and feels. Even part throttle shifts, wide open throttle shifts. I just don't like to default disable the AFM or make the shifts firm on remote stuff until I kind of get feedback from the customer on a lot of this stuff. People's expectations and their preferences vary greatly, but tuning something in person, typically I set it up how I like it, and by all means, if you have specific requests or want something changed, I'm more than happy to do that. It's not a problem. We can make it do pretty much whatever you want. We just need that kind of feedback. VCM file is flashed in. A little 15-second pause. Now it's writing the transmission control module. 38 seconds left on that one. We're ready to hit the road. Traction will be limited likely on some of these streets with the torque management off, with the transmission tuning wicked up a little bit. But hey, it's a performance car and you want it to feel like a performance car. At least I do. It's a performance car. Act like one. Alright, let's get it going. Boom. Good, looking good, looking good. See what this transmission feels like when we pull out and bump second, third, fourth. There we go. Much better. Not violent, but a quick bump. That's much better. I personally just like how the torque management feels at part throttle and wide open throttle. The big timing reduction on the shift. I mean, I get it why GM does it, but it doesn't coincide with the things we look for when we're trying to increase performance. So it's got to go. Don't have time for that. Traction limited, as I suspected. The little cut you heard at the top of the 1-2 shift was actual traction control. It got a lot of wheel speed pretty fast in first gear. It chopped the throttle at the top of the gear to help. Then it short shifted from second to third. I kind of do that just to make sure. I know a lot of times they're going to spin in first gear on the street, so if it's something that will kind of hold decent like this, I want to validate that the shift point looks pretty close. Obviously I can't make it perfect if it's spinning, because a lot of that stuff is dictated by the mile per hour and the rate of acceleration. So at least second gear stuff and up, I can really check that out. So I don't have to worry about it spinning in second gear really from a roll. Not at this power level, I don't. Alright, let's give this another go here. Second gear. Let her rip, see what this 2-3 shift looks like. It spin. I said that and it did spin. Well, it didn't spin bad, so we're gonna turn all the nannies off. We'll spin around and go back. And I need to get a good clean 2.3. Maybe I'll hit it from a little higher speed. I'll figure out what I'm gonna do when I get back on the street. I need that. Transmission feels great. I don't know if you guys can hear in the video how crisp the shifts are at part throttle. It feels great. It doesn't even feel the same driving around part throttle, you know. Should be able to be a little bit easier on it and get this good wide open throttle shift. And the data's looking pretty good, so we should be good there. Touched up any at all from where I've got it. Yeah, just a little bit. I'm gonna pull back over to my spot and make that change. And look at this data over. And we'll repeat. But ultimately, guys, that's the process. Look at data, repeat, make changes, reflash, rinse, repeat as many times as needed to get your car dialed in for you. So thank you guys for tuning in and watching the video. I hope you found it informational. If you have any questions, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to us, shoot us an email. We're happy to answer anything, help in any way possible. So thank you guys, and tune in next time.